In episode 3, the group is reeling and trying to gather their bearings, but Diego eventually asks Lila, "Why did that woman call you Nancy?" And at this point, number 5 isn't going to lie, so he tells the group all about Jean and Jean, the keepers, their beliefs. But when Ben asks, what do they want with Jennifer? Neither Lila or number 5 have that answer yet. Allison, meanwhile, goes to check on how Klaus is doing, but Klaus is pissed. He thinks that Allison completely crossed the line when she gave him Marigold, which he didn't want, and she ruined his 3 years of sobriety. He says some really nasty things to her. She says some nasty things to him, but eventually he just storms off. Once Klaus leaves, Allison looks at everybody and says, "You know what? Does anybody else have anything they want to get off their chest? No? No takers? Good, because I'm done being the bad guy with this family." It's kind of funny because Klaus headed straight to Allison's place, which is where he lived, but he went straight into junkie mode. He started ripping things off the walls. He stole Claire's piggy bank, and he was caught by Claire. And he immediately starts to lie about what he was doing, but Claire's concerned for her uncle in the moment. She tries to get Klaus to stay and talk to her, but he eventually just screams in her face. Claire is scared, Klaus is ashamed, but he eventually runs out of her place with TV in hand. He must have pawned it because eventually he ends up in an alleyway just floating, looking for his old dealer, which he does end up running into. The guy's name is Quinn. He's very surprised to see Klaus. And not just because Klaus is literally floating, it's because Klaus owes him $40,000. But Klaus knew he owed this guy money. He came here for a specific reason. He proceeds to insult Quinn until eventually Quinn pulls out a gun and shoots him. Klaus, though, is invincible, and he pretty quickly wakes up, which shocks the hell out of Quinn. Quinn decides he can use this little parlor trick to his advantage, so he takes Klaus prisoner, and he figures out a way where Klaus is going to pay off that $40,000 debt. After Klaus left the group, they just carried on. They had to fix the van, so they took it to a garage, but they discussed their next point of attack. All Ben cared about was Jennifer. He does have another issue that he's keeping from the group, though. He's got this really, really bad rash. He decides, however, that the group's plan sucks, and he's going to go on his own to find Jennifer. And that plan that Ben thinks sucks is to split up, with half the group going to follow the keepers, that would be number 5, Lila, and Diego, while the rest of the group, Luther, Victor, and Allison, they go to talk to Reginald, because the fact that that whole town was set up by Reginald Hargraves means that he has some answers to their questions. Ben just starts aimlessly walking down the street, trying to find any sign of life, town, anybody. But that rash is starting to glow. And what's interesting is Jennifer has an identical one on her arm. Now, she was taken to a farm by Jean and Jean, but she's terrified. She's basically held prisoner, even though they're telling her that she's not a prisoner. They start to tell Jennifer how they've been looking for her for a very long time, and they have a lot of questions about the cleanse, but she doesn't know what they're talking about. She starts to try and leave, but she suddenly gets a sharp pain in her head and a flashback to Ben's face, but also their hands touching in that fire aura. Both Jean and Jean realize that this girl has been through a lot, so they want to jog her memory. They bring her into a barn with a bunch of artifacts from other timelines proving the Umbrella Academy. But still, Jennifer's just scared and confused. That's when Jean and Jean pull out the big guns. Figuratively. They show Jennifer a giant squid. Because way back on January 23rd of 1995, fishermen caught a giant squid, and Jennifer was stuck inside. When she popped out, the only thing she said was, "the cleanse," and then she passed out. It's worth noting that one of the spectators to all of this was Reginald Hargraves. And it seems like when Jean and Jean show Jennifer the giant squid, it does bring back some kind of memory because she just drops to her knees. Jean and Jean, though, fed up with how rude Jennifer has been, decide to lock her in that barn. Meanwhile, Ben does find somebody. He finds Sai. Sai can tell just by Ben's reaction that he did encounter Jennifer. And he gets Ben to admit that he can't stop thinking about Jennifer. And Sai says, well, now you understand how special she is. Ben tells Sai that Jennifer was taken by two weirdos named Jean and Jean. And upon hearing this, Sai says, you need to listen to me very carefully. She's in grave danger. Ben then gets the same sharp pain in his head that Jennifer had. And Ben asks, "What is happening to me?" And Cy tells him, "It's her. She's calling out to you. I told you, she's special. And you're special, Ben, so listen to your body. You have everything you need to find her within you." So Ben does that. He listens to his body, and it does lead him to the farm where Gene and Jean are holding Jennifer. Ben arrives later that night, and he kills a whole lot of people, but he is able to get Jennifer back. While Ben was busy with Jennifer, Diego, Lila, and Five headed to Keeper's HQ, an address that's linked to Gene and Jean. While heading over there, Diego ended up confronting Lila about this mystery guy that she was meeting with, and Lila cracks up laughing, saying, "Diego, that was Five. We've been working undercover trying to infiltrate the Keepers." To finding out this information, Diego says this is worse than her having an affair. The fact that she was working undercover and she didn't ask for his help. Yeah, there's giant marital problems there. And when they eventually do arrive at Keeper's HQ, the trio kind of split up, with Lila and Five doing their own thing, and Diego looking for any evidence he can find on what the group was up to, Jennifer, that whole bit. Lila forces number 5 to blink, and they head right back to that train station, the weird one. He tells her that he didn't want to go there, but ever since Ben gave him that marigold, every time he does blink, this is where he shows up. He tells her all about the different timeline by taking the train, but she wants to see it firsthand, so they take a train. And when they show up at the next timeline, they're at Gene and Jean's apartment, but it's the apocalypse, the one that 5 started, and the one that 5 stayed in for 40-something years. In fact, they start getting shot at by young number 5, so they have to get back in the train station. When they blink back to the Keeper's headquarters, Diego has found something. In the trash, he found a file that said the Umbrella Academy had 2 casualties, and it was the day that Ben died. Jennifer is mentioned in this file. Diego starts to break it down for them, that a random dry cleaner shows up out of the blue and hires them to go to New Grumson, Maine to rescue a girl named Jennifer. The whole town is nuts. They end up getting T-boned, and the girl gets kidnapped by 2 vigilantes in a station wagon. Now, in their trash, they find a foreign document that has something to do with the death of Ben. So Diego's now convinced that whatever's going on with Jennifer has something to do with Ben. Now they just have to track down Luther, Victor, and Allison and show them what they found. And Luther, Victor, and Allison headed to Reginald's house. They were able to get in, but they didn't initially talk to Reginald. Instead, they talked to his new wife, Abigail Hargraves. And she's nothing like Reginald. In fact, she's really warm and welcoming. She takes the edge off of the trio a little bit, who came in ready to fight with Reginald about anything. She even does a little get-to-know-you with the group until Reginald shows up, and he's pissed off because he got word about what happened in New Grumson, Maine. He's quite pissed off at what they did, but it's Abigail who actually calms him down and tells him he's being rude. They fill Reginald in on everything, why they went to New Grumson, getting hired by Cy, all of that. And he tells them that he built that entire town to protect Jennifer. Protect her from the Umbrella Academy. Allison laughs and says, "Okay, so she is like us." But Reginald shakes his head and says, "No, she's nothing like you. In fact, she's the complete opposite in every way imaginable. And she has more power than all of you put together." That's when Diego, Lila, and 5 walk through the door and show the group the file about what went down the day that Ben died. 5 tells the group that the file is called the Jennifer Incident, and it explains how Ben died. And Luther says, "We already know how Ben died." He starts reciting exactly what he thinks happened, but the thing is, everybody starts reciting the exact same thing. Because this generic memory of how Ben died was put in them by Reginald Hargraves. Nobody actually knows how Ben died. None of them can actually explain what went down that day. Initially, Reginald has no interest in putting the memory back in their heads, but it's Abigail who convinces him to do so. So he takes the group to a separate room, he straps all of them up, everybody except number 5, who doesn't want Reginald anywhere near his head, and Lila. She's not interested either. Right before the group has this experiment done on them, Lila drops a bomb on Diego. She thinks that they should probably take some time away from each other. He doesn't really have a lot of time to process this because Reginald flips the switch and they start getting that memory back. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.